Thank you so much, and really appreciate HomeGauge for the opportunity, as well as what they're providing right now for the community. I think it's fantastic to bring people together in a way where we can interact, we can learn, we can grow during this time that we're all kind of quarantined, or maybe you're not. I don't know. uh, give you a little bit of my background. I was born and raised in St. Petersburg, Florida. I live now in Utah, and actually came out to Utah to start a real estate business with a friend of mine. He called me up one day and said, "Hey, Steven, I'm doing all this real estate right now, and your name keeps coming to mind. And do you want to partner with me?" And we had several conversations, went back and forth. I ended up moving my family from Florida out here to Utah, and we began and started a real estate investment company. Before I go into some of that and how we were able to kind of traverse and navigate through a crazy time period, because this was right around 2007, 2008, right as the market was crashing. And I'll get into that in just a minute. But before that, I had a pretty crazy childhood that kind of got me to this experience. And I want to share a little bit of my story and some of the things and obstacles that I had to overcome to kind of get to where I am. And hopefully, what I'm hoping is that as you kind of go through and listen to this, you'll be able to learn some things that you can do also to overcome even more obstacles for yourself as you're growing your business, as you're trying to get your name out, as whatever you may be doing. If you are a home inspector or someone that's supporting this industry, something that you can do to grow yourself and your business. So for me, I grew up extremely poor, and the word poor is relative for everybody, and I know that. So for me, I just want to define what poor meant so you understand. And I'm not trying to evoke any sympathy. I'm doing okay right now, but poor for me meant that oh when I was about 7 or 8 years old, my family, my father took me for the first time to go learn kind of the family trade, as it were. And the family trade was dumpster diving. I learned that a lot of food that we put on our tables was from grocery store dumpsters. Now, I don't want to paint a false picture. We weren't eating half-eaten sandwiches, but we would go to grocery stores or dumpsters. We would pull out food that had been discarded because it had expired, and we would take that food and sort it and keep what was good and freeze it and throw away what was bad. And I learned that we actually had many a meal this way, and probably a lot of my friends that didn't know it did too. So that was interesting. So we grew up poor. We were on welfare, either state or church welfare, for a number of years. And that was kind of just our experience growing up. Usually when I would ask my parents for anything, they would tell me no. And I'm sure that there are many of you that are listening right now that have probably had a similar experience in life. I know that I'm not the only one that experiences things like this, hardship, financial hardship, going to your parents and asking them for something, them telling you, no, we can't afford it. This was kind of a very normal thing in my childhood growing up. And I remember one day when I was about 9 years old, I had this huge dream and desire. I had this big goal. And I wasn't necessarily a kid that set goals, because in my family, we didn't really talk about goals because we didn't really believe that we could accomplish those goals because we never had the money for it, right? It was always kind of this conversation around money. And I remember at 9 years old, I had this big dream, this big goal. And my dream and goal was to build a tree house. Now, this is kind of in the real estate realm a little bit. At 9 years old, I wanted to have my own home or my own castle, my tree house. I remember wanting to build this tree house so bad that I would go outside. We had this massive oak tree in my backyard in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I would go outside and I would circle around this tree. And I would walk around this tree over and over and over again. And if if you grew up in my generation, you may have watched an old cartoon called DuckTales. And if you remember, Scrooge McDuck, he had this dime that he would walk around, his first dime that he would walk around over and over and over. And he did it so many times that he wore a path in the floor. Well, that was kind of like my scenario. I was walking around this tree over and over and over again to try to find, or to imagine what I was going to build. And I would look up at the branches and I would imagine all the different levels that I wanted. And I mean, I wasn't trying to build a simple tree house. I was trying to build a really, just my dream, right? My dream tree house. And I would imagine it. I would imagine where I would put these different levels and how I would do it and what I would do. And I remember I got to the point in my dreaming, in my scheming, where I wanted to show somebody. I wanted to talk to somebody about it. And so I remember I went to my siblings and I told them, I can't remember if it was like a group thing or exactly, maybe it was a few of them. And I went to them and I said, hey guys, I want to build this treehouse. Now, coming from my background, you could probably imagine what they told me or what they said. They weren't just negative about it. They kind of said, hey, Steven, that's a stupid idea. You're dumb. You you can't do that. We don't have the money for it. And I knew that I couldn't go to my parents and ask them, hey, can we build a treehouse? Because they would tell me that same thing. And it was interesting because at 9 years old, when my siblings told me, Steven, you can't do that. That's stupid. That's dumb. Something happened inside of me where I felt like there was a fire that was lit. And I wanted to prove them wrong. But I think more than anything, I wanted to prove myself right. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this thing, even though it seemed impossible. And I knew that it was impossible, or it seemed impossible as well. And so after they told me that, this kind of fire got lit in my gut, and I was like, I want to make this happen. How can I do this? So I went back outside and I would walk around this tree and I would imagine and think, and what can I do? How can I do this? And I don't know how many of you follow Tony Robbins, but I love a lot of what he says. One of the things that he says all the time is, if you lack the resources, it's time to get resourceful. And as a 9-year-old boy, I didn't really know what that meant. I'd never heard that before, of course. But I started to think, what can I do? I tried to just let myself imagine and go with it. And as I was thinking about my treehouse one day and thinking about how I was going to build it, this thought came to my mind: Steven, you're no stranger to dumpster diving. Kind of an interesting thought. Why don't you just go find the materials that you need? And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh yeah, of course I can. I lived in these old neighborhoods, and this old neighborhood that had dirt alleyways that crossed through these kind of neighborhood blocks. And on our dirt alleyways, we had these massive dumpsters that would service 3 or 4 homes. And I remember thinking I could go by, and I've seen people discard old construction materials, and I've seen people get rid of what all sorts of things that you can use to build a treehouse. And so I said, yes, let's do that. Kind of talking to myself. So I head out, 9-year-old boy, started going up and down these alleyways looking for materials. I remember one day I found an old solid wood door. And this solid exterior kind of wood door was perfect for a treehouse. I could take the whole thing and just kind of throw it up and make it almost a floor of itself, And I remember I found an old water bed. And I don't know how many of you remember the old water beds, or if you maybe had one, or your parents had one, or your grandparents had one. But if you remember the old water beds, most of it was particle board, not very useful for a treehouse. But the surround, what kind of kept the water bags in place, was like pressure treated 2x8s or 2x10s. I mean, this is like great wood, plus the plywood that it would sit on. And so I went down this alleyway and started gathering all of this wood. And just imagine this 9-year-old boy, dragging this wood back to my house. I didn't have any help. No one was helping me out, so I'm just dragging this down the dirt alleyway and getting it to my house. And my house, just behind my house, we had this old, dilapidated, detached garage. And when I say dilapidated, I mean the windows were broken in. It was hardly used. I mean, we had some bicycles and some tools in there, but there were holes in the roof and holes in the windows. And I started stacking all this wood kind of at the side of this garage. And I had found enough, some old 2x4s from discarded construction, some old furniture that I could repurpose and things like that. Of course, what I said before. And I started gathering this wood and kind of stacking it at the side of this garage. And I got to the point where I had plenty of wood to use. But I still had nothing to really create my treehouse with, meaning I didn't have any nails or screws or anything else. And so I remember kind of going back and doing my Scrooge McDuck thing, walking around this tree over and over and thinking about it and looking at it and thinking about it. And as I thought, what can I do to start my project? The thought came to me again, like kind of a second burst of inspiration, or whatever you want to call it. And I had this thought: go into this dilapidated garage, and you've seen old screws or nails on the floor at times. Just go clean it up and see what you can find. So again, remember, I'm 9 years old, and I go inside my house, I grab a broom and a dustpan, and I get out to the garage, and I start sweeping and cleaning and organizing and trying to look for anything that I could possibly find. And I ended up having about a decent handful of nails and screws that I could use to kind of begin the project. Not enough to finish it, but enough to begin the project. And so I was so excited. I got a hammer and a saw. I made some steps to get up into this big old oak tree, and then I started hoisting these pieces of wood that I had found up into the tree. We had an old broken kind of a rotted out sort of garden hose. And I remember we grabbed this garden hose, or I grabbed this garden hose and I tied it around some of this wood. I started hoisting this wood up into the treehouse, 9-year-old boy, and I'm doing all this work, and I'm having the time of my life. I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, where you're in the zone, like you're doing what you love, you're doing what is exciting to you, and you're just working. It's not work anymore. It's like play. And that, for me, that's kind of where I was. And it was extremely exciting. But I I got to the point where I had used all of my nails and screws, and I had a lot of wood left, and my treehouse definitely wasn't done. And I remember I was up in my treehouse that I kind of started, and I was sitting up there. I had spent as much time as I possibly could, even from the very beginning. You know, when I first put the steps up, I would get up there. I lived in trees. People called me Spider-Man because I climbed trees so much. And but I was up there one day, and I had finished using all my nails and screws, and I was thinking to myself, how can I finish this project? And I'm up there, and my mom came out the back door, and she yelled my name, and I ran down to where she was, and she had her hand behind her back. And I went up to her. I said, "Hey, I can't remember exactly what I said, but something to the effect of, what do you need, or what can I do, or what do you want?" And she said, "Well, I've got a secret for you, but you can't tell your siblings." And I don't know if you're like me, or if you were raised in a family. I had there were 5 siblings in my family, 5 kids. I was the fourth of 5. And usually when mom said, "You can't tell your siblings," you knew it was going to be good. It's like, yes, I won't tell my siblings. Don't worry. And I remember I was sitting there, and I told her, I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I won't tell my siblings." And she pulled her hand out from behind her back, and she had this brown paper bag in her hand. And she kind of rolled open, this brown paper bag. And when she opened it up and I looked inside, I saw this brand new box of 16 penny nails. And if you know construction, they're like 3-inch, I think maybe 3.5-inch, 16 penny nails, just really great galvanized, perfect for building a treehouse. And I threw my arms around my mom's neck, and I gave her a big hug and kiss, and took those nails and ran up in my tree. And I was never seen from again. No, I'm just kidding. But I went up and I finished my treehouse, over the next several weeks, and I got it to a point where it was satisfactory for me, where it was just, kind of completed, used all the wood that I had. And I'll tell you, that treehouse was the ugliest thing you've probably ever seen. I mean, it was not planned out at all, really, except for in my head. I had not drawn up any plans. I had thought about it and thought about it a lot, but it was an ugly thing, but it was sturdy. And as a 9-year-old boy who kind of did this all by himself, all the kids in the neighborhood could come up, and it would support them, miraculously enough. I built it strong, and we had a ton of fun up in that treehouse. This story taught me a few things about obstacles and overcoming obstacles. And the number one thing, or maybe not the number one thing, but the first thing that maybe sounds a little bit cliche, is you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. And you've probably heard that a million times from a million different people, but the reality is it's true. This is why people keep saying it. People that have had experiences, you probably had experiences in your life where you overcame crazy odds. There's no reason why a poor 9-year-old boy from St. Petersburg, Florida, who's on welfare and dumpster dove to get food and all these things, should have ever been able to build a treehouse. There's just no reason. But I as a kid, for some reason I had that kind of that ability, or that kind of line of thought, which was, don't give up, just keep on going. Just find a solution, be resourceful. And so that resourcefulness got me to where I was able to build it to a certain point. The second thing I learned is that I get in my own way. I don't know how much you maybe have experienced this in your own business or in your own lives, where you get in your own way, where you convince yourself that you can't do something, where you convince yourself that, for example, because the economy is bad, I can't grow my business. I can't increase my team or build my team. I can't get more jobs because the economy is, maybe you convinced yourself of that. I had convinced myself as a 9-year-old boy that I couldn't ask my mom or my parents for help, because if I asked them, they would tell me no. Now, how many of you have had those experiences, right? You've had the experience in life where you've tried to build your business, or you've tried to do something in maybe an economic downturn, or maybe something happened, or maybe the market in your area, the real estate market wasn't as good as it otherwise could have been, or whatever the case was. Maybe a natural disaster came through and just kind of shook things up. Those things are going to happen all of the time. And when we have those experiences, we will typically imprint those experiences in our subconscious mind. We'll take that in as fact and as the standard from here moving forward. And that standard becomes oftentimes a hindrance in allowing us to grow and to expand and to build. And as a 9-year-old boy, the thought that my parents couldn't help me was a real belief for me. I mean, I knew that I couldn't go and ask them for help, because I knew that if I did ask them for help, they would say no. But the reality of my situation was a little bit different, wasn't it? The reality of my situation was I could have probably, at the very beginning, asked my mom for some help. And even though it was just a box of nails, I could have saved myself a lot of time and maybe a lot of heartache and a lot of worry. And, I could have saved myself a lot of that. I had built it up in my mind as something that was true. And so, again, the first thing, you can do anything. The second thing, I get in my own way, and we all get in our own way. So recognizing that will allow you to get out of your own way and allow yourself to just get after it. I subscribe to a lot of those who believe in the power of positive thinking. You start to get to know people that are affluent financially, individuals that have created businesses, really successful businesses. I've been very, very fortunate to rub shoulders with some amazing individuals throughout my career, in the variety of different things that I've been able to do. And most of the individuals that I know who are wildly successful, who have grown amazing businesses or empires even, they subscribe to this similar line of thought, that you can literally, with your attitude, your thoughts, and your ideas, create circumstances different than what your outside kind of circumstances may be showing at the present time. And I want to give a couple examples, but before I do, I want to talk about that. Go back to the 2007 and 8. I had, before then, I had gotten involved in home inspections. As a matter of fact, I used HomeGauge. The company that I worked with was an amazing organization. We did a large majority of, I shouldn't say a large majority, but we did a lot of home inspections in the Tampa Bay area, St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay, and the surrounding kind of areas. And we did a lot of work, and HomeGauge provided, honestly, just to plug them real quick, because I think that they're an amazing organization. They provided an amazing tool that we could use that helped us to grow our business even faster and even more. And oftentimes I know that it's hard when things are tough, or when it seems like the economy is shifting, to want to invest in yourself as a business. But that tool for us, rather than having to try to figure something out, created and opened up doors that allow us to grow our business, where we had three teams going at once, doing multiple inspections a day per team. And it did a lot for us. That experience kind of springboarded my interest in real estate in general. And it was after I had been working as a home inspector, then took over kind of the office management of this home inspection company. And that my friend called me up and said, "Hey, I'm doing this real estate thing. Will you come and partner up with me?" Well, as you know, I moved my family from Florida to Utah. And this was right as the market was crashing. So this is a crazy thing, this is 2007 and 8, as the market was crashing. I had gotten my I had gotten my license, my mortgage license, and we were doing a lot of loans. We had kind of started just doing loans for our partners. We were bringing on more and more partners and doing a lot of real estate. We're getting to the point we were probably doing, 2 to 4 properties a month with our partners that we were bringing in. And we were kind of exercising a sort of a buy and hold strategy. And we were doing this right as the market started crashing. I actually remember that we were in an office, and we had probably 10 loans that we had submitted for ourselves and our partners as we were buying these properties. And we were going through a variety of different banks. And if some of you made it through, or kind of if you were in business or doing anything in real estate or inspections during that time, it was an interesting time for sure. It definitely presented itself with a lot of different obstacles. And for us, it was about how do we take this information that we have right now? How do we take the circumstance that we can't control and really focus in on those things that we actually can control, focus in on how we can improve ourselves, and then improve our business, and then improve our experience for our customers. And we really started to focus in on that. And during a time where everyone else was jumping out of the real estate game, it seemed, I mean, even major banks and lenders were closing their doors. I remember we had several loans in with Countrywide Home Loans, and I think it was ABC Loans at the time, and there were a couple others I don't remember now, but those two in particular, where one day we were supposed to be closing on, I think the next day we were supposed to be closing on several loans, and the next day they had closed their doors, they had folded, and we had to try again. That's an obstacle, but it didn't stop us. We went and looked for another lender who hadn't closed their doors. And although lending guidelines had gone up and things had become a little bit more difficult that way, in other words, they had required more, we were able to meet those requirements and continue forward and continue to grow our business. And over the next decade from that point or so, we had been able, and actually the company is still in business, but we've been able to help thousands of people all over the nation to invest in real estate. And obviously we've been able to employ and use a lot of people, from appraisers to inspectors to, construction laborers and everything, every part of that process. And it's been an amazing journey there. But I want to dive a little bit more into the concept of really focusing in, especially in the face of obstacles, really focusing in on the things that you can actually control, and getting out of your mind or out of your, what you feel like is your wheelhouse, anything that you can't actually control. So I'm a father of 7 children, and I know that probably most people, when I say that, they think I'm crazy a little bit when I when I bring that up. And I'm going to share my screen just real quick so you can see a picture of my kids, because they are my pride and joy. This is my family. There's me, of course, and there's my wife in the orange shirt. And then I've got 3 boys and 4 girls. Boy first, he's my oldest, and then 4 girls in a row, and then my last 2 boys. And they are truly the motivation and the why for me in so much of what I do. That being said, I want to describe a little bit of a scenario that we've probably all seen or experienced at least once before, whether we've got our own kids or not. If you were at least a baby at some point, then maybe you can relate to this just a little bit. But if you ever observe kids, that kids actually, they take on obstacles differently than most adults do. I want you to think about this for just a second. Think about a way that a child reacts to its surroundings and its world. If you look at a child, if you look at a baby, I remember my youngest boy, Abram, when he was just born, and as he was just kind of barely growing in the first few months of his life, we would often set him on the floor on a blanket so he could sit there and observe all of us as we were doing our different things and going about our tasks. And his 6 other siblings would be running around him and yelling and screaming and having fun and playing with him from time to time. And so he'd be there and he'd be observing everything. But if you think about what a baby's goal is, if you really think about this for a second, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but I have. Think about what a baby's goal is. A baby's goal is to walk and to talk. Those are probably their first 2 major goals, right? Well, they have obstacles. The biggest obstacle is, number 1, their muscles haven't formed and created well enough for them to be able to form words in their mouth, nor have their muscles formed and developed enough for them to be able to stand up and walk and balance and all those different things that you need with the equilibrium. It just hasn't developed. So even though their goal is to walk and to talk, they don't do it very well for a long time. I mean, just think about the process real quick, right? My son, he'd be laying on the ground, and usually if you remember that babies, they kind of flail their arms around sporadically and they kick their legs around sporadically. And that's just kind of the way of it. And they watch and observe, and they watch and observe. And so they start from being on their back to they eventually will roll over on their stomach. They'll do that for a while. They'll roll back and forth, and they'll figure that out. And then they'll start to kind of they keep on kicking and moving their arms the whole time. This is crazy, but if you think about it, really what they're doing in that whole motion is they're trying to mimic what they're seeing, right? They're seeing us walk around, and so they're trying to do the same. They're kicking their legs because they see us moving our legs, and they're moving their arms because they see us doing the same thing. And all that's doing for them is obviously it's strengthening them in the entire process. They're getting stronger and stronger and stronger, so that eventually they get to a point where they can walk. But there's a lot of failure in between. This is important, I think, to understand, because a baby, though, looks at failure a whole lot different than an adult does. A baby looks at failure, typically with my son, if he would, pull himself up, he'd oftentimes fall right back down on his butt, or sometimes he'd, try to even crawl in the very beginning stages, and he'd fall right back on his stomach. And so there's a lot of that trial and error, and he would fail a ton. But here's the interesting thing. We don't typically go to a baby as they are trying to stand and walk and then tell them, hey, you're a failure. Right? We don't point at a child. That would be ridiculous. It'd be ludicrous. We don't say, hey, you're a failure. We say, you can do it. And I remember my son, he would almost only have to twitch his little pinky toe, and he would have myself and my wife and his 6 other siblings like cheering him on and clapping their heads and saying, good job, that's amazing. You just twitched your pinky toe, and that was very, very typical. But the neat thing about that is what actually helped him to move forward. See, as adults, we do something a little bit different. I want to share something here. Hopefully, I think you can see my board here. But I want to share something that we do as adults and give you a really powerful tool to overcome kind of the mental obstacles also that we often face in our business. So I'm going to draw this up here. And if you would in the chat, just let me know if you can see this okay as I start to draw here just a little bit. And let me know if you can see right here. So this is good. Okay. So
yep, that's good. We can see that.
You can see that? Perfect. So you can see that little cross there that I drew. This is going to represent your life and kind of a timeline. Back here, we've got the past. Try to draw that big enough. Right here, we've got the future. Okay, so we've got the past, we've got the future. And of course, right down the middle, we've got our present moment. Okay, so the problem that we face in life is we typically go through life and we have all these different experiences, right? We're just kind of gathering up experiences, and I'm just going to put them as little tiny dots here on the board. These experiences all over the place. Every day, whatever it is that we're doing, it doesn't matter if we're in business, we're gathering experiences. Sometimes they're good, we call them good. Sometimes maybe they're bad, and we call them bad. We've got all these different experiences. The problem in our society is we have been taught not to focus on the good experiences. Typically, we've been taught to focus on the bad experiences. I'll explain what I mean. If you've ever been in a room with 2 people that have experienced a divorce, you'll often experience kind of the one-upper game, right? Well, the one person will say, well, I got divorced and it was horrible, and she was the worst. And then the other person will say, well, yeah, I got divorced, and my ex-husband, he was even worse because he did this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden you get this kind of one-upping game where they're trying to outplay each other of whose ex-spouse was worse. It happens a lot. And so we're kind of trained as a society to spend time and dive into all of our bad experiences and to share it. And social media is big on this, right? Everyone shares all their most horrible experiences, and it's just kind of what we've been trained to, is to focus on those things. And so usually we'll take those bad experiences, and I'll label this real quick. This is past, past failures. And right here is going to be past success. So again, because we usually focus in on our past failures more than we do in our past success, we oftentimes will blow these things kind of up and out of proportion. I mean, have you ever gotten hurt and then told a story to somebody? Like, I want you to do something real quick. For those of you that are listening real quick, if you can, stand up for just a moment. and I can't see you, and that's okay. But if you can, for just a moment, stand up, spread your arms apart like this. And on the count of three, what I want you to do is to actually swing your arms forward and smack them together. Okay, I know that this is gonna just take a second, but stand up, or if you're, don't do this if you're driving or something, if you're listening in. But if you're in a place where you can, stand up, go ahead and spread your arms out like this. And on the count of three, let's just swing them forward and smack our hands together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you should have felt something when you did that. If you didn't feel very much, you didn't do it hard enough. Let's do it one more time. Okay, ready? On the count of three, we're just gonna smack our hands together. Make it so it stings just a little bit. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we just smacked our hands together. We felt something. There's a sensation there. I'm going to call that pain. Okay. And that pain just happened. It was real, right? We just experienced something. Maybe this is a client telling you no. Maybe you're out marketing your business and you're getting a lot of rejection. Maybe you made a mistake on a home inspection that wasn't caught, and that was that now has made you gun shy a little bit to get out there and do more. Whatever that might be. That obstacle, that experience in your life just created pain. This is normally what happens with people is they'll take that pain and they'll go share it with somebody, right? They'll say, hey, I just smacked my hands together and man, it really hurt. Like it stung really bad. Have you ever experienced that? And then they'll commiserate with each other, right? They'll say, have you ever experienced that? And they'll say, yeah, I experienced that. As a matter of fact, I just did that 20 seconds ago. I just smacked my hands together. Man, it really hurt, stung. And then they'll lean on each other and talk about it, and, whatever. Then they'll go to the next conversation, and maybe this doesn't happen to you, but they'll go to the next conversation. They'll say, hey, have you ever lit your hands on fire? Yeah, well, that's what just happened to me. At least that's what it felt like. It felt like my hands are on fire, like they're burning. And it's almost like my skin is melting off, man, it's hard, and all of a sudden it went from just smacking your hands together, feeling a little pain, to one step up. And then the next person you go to, you talk about, hey, have you ever had your hands chopped off? Yeah, well, I don't know about you, but a minute and a half ago, I just got my hands chopped off. At least that's what it felt like. Have you ever had your hands chopped off, or you know what that feels like? No, yeah, it's hard. Oh, and that story gets worse and worse and worse. Well, we do this with our bad experiences. We talk about them and we blow them up. And usually this doesn't necessarily have to happen outwardly. Like, we don't necessarily have to talk to people about this, but oftentimes this is what happens in our minds. And that experience becomes so big that we start to believe that the experience, or what we experience, is actually who we are, right? So in other words, let's say you made a mistake on a home inspection, or you did a bad real estate transaction deal, or whatever it was, you begin to associate yourself with that bad transaction or with that mistake, and you start to say, well, I'm just not a good home inspector. I'm just bad at it. Or I'm just not a good businessman. I'm just bad at it. You start to believe these things. You start to tell these things, and this becomes not anymore an experience of the past, but it starts to become who you are. So what I want to do is I want to help you understand, first of all, how to take and reverse that kind of line of thought to help start to grow who you are. That will eventually, of course, grow your business as well. Now, if you look at here right in the middle, the reality that I know is, if something is in the past, it's lost its power, right? It's already gone. It's already done. The past is in the past. The future isn't here yet. So the only place where we have actual power is in the present moment, right here. And in the present moment, we have something called choice, right? We have choice. That choice is one of the most important things that we have. It actually gives us the most ability to grow and to build from any place. It doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter what all of our past experiences were. It doesn't matter that I was a poor boy that grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, who dumpster dove for food. None of that matters. We have, in the moment, in this moment right here, the present moment, we have the ability to choose. Now, I want you to think about this for a second, because I'm going to go into a little bit of our emotions. I want you to think about positive emotions here for just a moment. What are all the positive emotions that you can think of? Happiness, like joy. As a matter of fact, if you're on and listening right now, just start typing some of these positive emotions into the chat function. Anything that comes to your mind real quick, just start just typing those in. What are positive emotions that you can experience in any moment? Don't be shy. Just go ahead and start typing some of these in. Happiness, love, yep, joy, laughter. These are great. Excitement, Good. I like it. I mean, we could go on and go on, but I want you to just pay attention for a second to how you feel when you say those words: happiness, love, joy. It's almost hard to say. Like, you almost can't say it with like a frown on your face. Oh, I like that inner peace. Like all these emotions. Oh, affection. These are great. Thank you. Yeah, all these different emotions. They actually they have I don't know if if anyone has studied kind of the meta worlds or metaphysics or anything like that, but words have a real vibration, right? They have an energy, and these words actually can change your state. They can change the way that you feel. Have you ever noticed that someone who is happy typically doesn't walk around like this, with their head down, and they don't. Usually, someone that's happy and excited, they have a little bit of a different demeanor, shoulders back, chest up, head high. They got a smile on their face. They're excited about life, and it's contagious. Now, on the other hand, I won't spend too much time here, but if you'll also write in some things, I'm gonna lump those in just a second. But I want you to, for just a moment, write in some negative emotions. Just type some in. Okay, sadness, scared, fear. Good. What else? Grief. Okay, lack of acceptance, loneliness. These are great. Doubt. Yeah. Oh gosh. I don't know if you, you anger. Reading these words, like for me, I've become very aware of the emotions that I choose to portray, and that I choose to feel. I've experienced a lot of different things in life. We've all experienced loss. My parents passed away years ago. I have a younger brother who passed away back in 2016. Depression. These are, yeah. I've experienced a lot of these emotions. Um, I want to say something today that's going to sound maybe a little strange or a little far-fetched, but if you can grasp the concept of this, it can help with so many different things. You are in control of your emotions, or better said, you have the ability to learn to control your emotions. If you begin to control your emotions, you then choose. You can control your choices. You can control what you're doing in the present moment. If you can control what you're doing in the present moment, you can completely control your outcome in the future. And we're going to talk about exactly what this is, because I was sitting in my bed one day and I was kind of drawing this all out. I was mapping this all out. I was thinking about just the life experience, and I was thinking about all sorts of things. And I kind of clumped these different emotions. And I don't know if you felt the same thing, but these negative emotions, I almost felt like a drain as I was reading these. Like, it almost started to drain my energy. So let's get it back for real quick. I want to go back, but I want to lump these into two different categories real quick. If you've ever read a book called Think and Grow Rich, one of my favorite books, really is all about the power of positive thought. He talks about one of the very first principles, universal principles that he talks about, is the principle of faith, or believing in yourself, believing that you can accomplish an outcome. So I'm gonna lump these into faith-filled kind of emotions, emotions of getting after it, of becoming, right? Faith-filled emotions, and these other ones, the negative ones, are more of the fear-based type of emotions. And as I kind of looked at this, I love this concept of faith and belief in yourself. Being able to, the more that you believe, the more the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve. And this is kind of the faith that Napoleon Hill talks about. When I think about these two words, I used to think that these two words were completely separate, right? I used to think that they were complete opposites. And that was until I started to realize that these two things, faith and fear, are actually kind of fraternal twins. I don't know if that's right. They're two sides of the same coin. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. As I was kind of contemplating this stuff, and I was thinking about choice and how I could choose to be happier, or how I could choose a certain emotion, I started to kind of think about a lot of different things that I've learned throughout my life and experiences that I've had. As a matter of fact, my daughter is a girl who almost is never, she's very infrequently is she ever sad or depressed or down. She's always happy. And her name is Ruby, and she is just a light. And I remember one day my wife was giving her a bath in the tub, and she asked her to stay in the tub because she had to go grab like a towel or something from the laundry room, and she went to go grab the towel, and my little daughter leapt out of the bathtub. You know, she was buck naked, and she leapt out of this bathtub and just started running around the house, you know, and ran over to my wife to, you know, get her clothes and towel and whatever. And that was like joy. You know, joy has this like explosive energy oftentimes. It's fun. You're excited. It moves. And Tony Robbins actually says another thing. He says that emotions are energy in motion. And so if you juxtapose that with someone who is depressed, my father actually for the last 15 years of his life experienced massive depression. And if you ever experienced it, I've experienced a little depression before. If you ever experienced it, it's all about you stop moving. Literally, oftentimes you stop moving. You want to sleep. You want to be alone. You want to separate yourself from other people. You don't want to work on your business or your goals or anything else like that if you're fearful or doubtful or any of that, right? So you push all these things away, and you literally cower into yourself. But there are some things that you can do to overcome that. Literally, you cannot be depressed if you're standing up straight. Like, it's super difficult. Try it. I mean, if you're feeling depressed right now, I'm telling you right now, just do what I'm asking you to do right now for the next 2 minutes, and you will change the way you feel immediately. If you're feeling depressed right now, stand up. Or if you're not, do it anyway. Stand up, get your chest out, you know, stick your chest out, shoulders up a little bit, head high, smile. Like I've had an opportunity to do this experiment in crowds all over the world, and almost no matter where I am, if I go up to somebody and I like get in their face and I just smile. I mean, it may be annoying to some people, right? But most people will eventually smile back. Why? Because that happy, that excited, that energy is contagious. And even if they're down, if they're not feeling good, if I usually go up to them and I just, you know, give them a big smile, they'll typically smile back. I have witnessed people's whole demeanors change just by me getting after and smiling. So if I can help change someone else, think about how much it can change your actual physiology. If you will stand up, if you're feeling down, it's almost impossible to feel down. If you'll get up, stand up, put your shoulders back, look up, and smile. And if you will move forward in your business with that kind of attitude, understanding that you have a choice over what you are feeling, over your emotions. You can choose to feel differently. And it takes effort and discipline, but you can. And here's the neat thing. So as I was contemplating this whole concept and how I can help grow my business and help grow other people's businesses and all sorts of things, I recognize that fear and this concept of fear and faith, they're actually very, very similar. See, a definition actually came to my mind as I was contemplating these things, and I thought, I've never heard that or read that anywhere before. Real quick, I want to ask you this, and I'm going to ask you to type in something again for those of you that would like to participate. Have you ever heard of a definition of fear that made sense to you? And I'm just going to give you a second. I want you to type in a definition of fear. Just what you maybe have heard in the past, or what is fear to you? Just type that in real quick, please. Even just a few of you, if you'll type it in, what is fear to you? What does that define? Because I think right now, especially during these times, we've got people who are fearful, and I'm not saying that any emotion isn't understandable. I think actually emotions are great. I think all emotions actually have their place. But the question is once we've experienced it for a minute, do we want to stick in or stay in that emotion, or do we want to move on? Do we want to choose to do something different to build our business? So here's we've got a few. Concerned something will happen or lose something. Okay. Unable to decide anything, freezing up, inability to act, not recovering from my depression and grief ever. Yeah, these are good. These are great. Not being strong enough to get out of my own way. Oh man, these are all emotions that happen. An unknown virus, for sure. Yeah. So these things come up. And I for me, I love this whole concept of and I believe in this concept that I can create anything, that I can accomplish and create anything that I really stick my mind to. I'm going to give you the definition of fear that kind of came to my mind. But before I do, let's keep going here. Absence of peace. Oh yeah. Forget everything and run. I think that's a natural response for a lot of us. the fight or flight kind of mechanism, right? If we're afraid, we either want to fight against it or we want to run away. That's very, very natural. Awesome. Everyone, first of all, thank you so much for sharing. If we were in a room, I'd have you all applaud each other because it's not easy to share and to get outside the box sometimes. But thanks for sharing. Um, all of these things are real. Emotions are all very, very real. Um, I want to give you something that has helped me. And I don't, I hope it will help you as well. But this has been kind of an eye-opening thing for me. And I learned, let's see if you should, yeah, I'll write it up here. This definition came to mind. Fear is putting faith, fear is putting faith in what I don't want. See, like that definition made it so simple for me. Fear is putting faith in what I don't want. I want to help you understand what I mean by this because this was like, I don't know, it knocked me over almost. I mean, this like information for me has been so powerful because I believe that whatever I put my energy, my time, my thoughts, whatever I put into those things into is what's going to be created. Have you ever been afraid of something happening and then of course it did? I think about it for a second. Have you ever been scared of a certain situation and it just keeps happening? Have you ever thought to yourself, man, I wish I could just grow myself beyond this certain point, but it'll never happen? And so of course it never does. Or I don't know how to make it happen. You keep telling yourself you don't know how, or you can't, or you won't. And so you're putting all of your current choice into those fear-based emotions, and you are literally putting your faith into what you don't want. So is it any wonder that it keeps happening? But if we then can see this and identify that we're putting our faith into what we don't want, and when I say faith, I'm talking about all of your thoughts, all of your energy, and all of your words, everything. Like you're putting all of your actions, your thoughts, and your words into that thing, and you'll get it. Because here's what I believe. I believe that we as human beings have this awesome ability to create. Like we just do. And for a lot of us, this is part of the struggle of life, is learning how to overcome this fear, or to stop putting all of our efforts into these kind of activities and begin putting our efforts into these kind of activities. The activities that will actually bring us joy, the activities that will actually bring us happiness and excitement, that will grow our business, that will grow us as individuals. That's what we want to start putting our efforts into, putting our faith into, right? Are those things that are going to bring us what we actually want. Because here's the interesting thing. Our words are powerful. Our minds are powerful. They will create what we give them. And so oftentimes, I'm going to ask this question, and I'm going to kind of wrap up with some of this, but have you ever looked in the mirror and told yourself, or said these words? I don't even want to say them, but I'm going to say them just for the sake of this experience right now. Have you ever looked in the mirror and said to yourself, I'm fat? And you don't have to answer right now. Don't type in. I want to see a whole bunch of people saying, yes, I've said that. You're welcome to if you want to. But I think that we've all, at some point in our life, whether we are or not, whether that's our perspective or someone else's, it doesn't really matter. We've probably looked in the mirror and said, I'm fat. Now I want to explain to you the lie for just a second, okay? If you are, let's call it, according to the world's kind of basic standards, if you're 300 pounds or 200 pounds overweight, okay, just for a second, just go with me. If you're 200 pounds overweight, are you fat? See, we've gotten to language where we call ourselves such, but the reality, like scientifically, is you're still 70 to 75% water. Now, I'm saying this on purpose, and I know this is going to sound weird, kind of whatever, but I want you to go with me for just a second. Have you ever stood in front of a mirror and told yourself, looked at yourself, you're kind of looking at the mirror, and you look at yourself up and down, and you say, man, I am so water today. Have you ever said that? No, but I don't think anyone's ever said that. But it's more true. See, we've been taught as a society, and this is kind of generational, this gets handed down, and this is one of those things that separates the truly successful in life. from those that kind of just let life happen to them over and over and over again. This separates those that take advantage of an economic downturn and see the opportunity inside of it from those that want to say, oh, it's impossible. It just can never happen for me because I just can't. What I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you, is one of the biggest, but least, like, most amazing tools, but one of the least used tools. It's the ability to begin telling yourself the truth and stop believing the lies that you've been telling yourself for so long. Because the truth is, if you look in the mirror and you tell yourself you're fat, no, you're not. It's not true. It's a lie. You're 75% water. So you're actually more water than anything else, but you don't sit there and tell yourself you're water. You want to believe the lie because then it excuses your actions moving forward. Because typically, if you tell yourself you're fat, guess what? You'll be fat. You will gain more weight. And I don't mean you'll be fat. You'll gain more weight, and you'll continue to go down that road, and you'll continue to create more and more evidence to show that that's true. But if you look into the mirror and you told yourself, man, I'm amazing. I'm wonderful. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm good. I can do things. I'm great. You start to give yourself that kind of positive reinforcement, just like I did for my son when he was a little baby learning how to walk. Can you imagine if he would get up to walk and he would trip and fall? If every time he tripped and fell, if I looked at him and said, you horrible little baby. Like, I don't even like saying these words because I think it's ridiculous and preposterous, and it makes me shudder. But if I were to say that to my son, every time that he tried to walk and fell, how many of you believe that he wouldn't keep walking? Like, he wouldn't even try. He'd stop trying. Think about it for a second. Babies wouldn't walk. We would never learn to walk if we didn't have a support structure of people around us clapping and saying, awesome, you're so good. Yeah, you failed. You fell down. Who cares? It's awesome. Like, your failure was rad. Good job. That's the most amazing failure I've ever seen. Get back up. Let's do it again. But as adults, we don't do that. See, as adults, we stay here. We tell ourselves that we are our failures. And because we believe that that's who we are, we choose to continue that exact same pattern. We choose to tell ourselves we're fat, and so we'll stay that way. We choose to tell ourselves that we can't build a business in a bad economy, and then we don't build our business in a bad economy, and typically we'll go out of business, right? And we will create the evidences to support the belief that we have. So I'm asking you, I'm telling you, if you want a better life, if you want to improve your business, if you want to get past this, then begin today to have faith in yourself, to put your faith in what you do want rather than putting your faith into what you don't want. Because either way, you're an amazing creator. You're super powerful as an individual. We all are. This human race is just tremendous. Like, it's amazing and talented. And we have way more ability and power than you probably think or have ever recognized in your life. Because think about it. Your life as you have it right now is the sum of all of your thoughts, actions, words. It's all created. You created it all. That's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. Even if it's exactly not where you want it to be right now, that's a good thing, because that means you're a powerful creator. That means all you have to do is to begin to put your faith in what you do want rather than to continue to put your faith into what you don't want. And if you'll make that choice, there's no obstacle that's going to be too great. You can overcome it all. You can build your business. You can build multiple teams in a downturn market. Are people still buying real estate right now? Absolutely. Are people still putting their homes up for sale right now and they need an inspector? Absolutely. Right? All those things. Are there opportunities abound? Are there job opportunities? Even though the world would tell you right now that unemployment rate is the highest it's ever been or whatever. I mean, all that kind of crap, whether it's true or not, it doesn't even matter. Because the truth is you get to create the life that you want. Is it also true that in this time, there are people that are becoming more successful than they ever have in the past? Yes. This economy, exactly as it is today, is an incubation grounds for some new millionaires and new billionaires, new entrepreneurs, people that are going to make it big. And my invitation is for you today is to choose to overcome those obstacles by not focusing on them, but rather by focusing on what you want to create, and put your faith in what you want rather than what you don't want. Everyone, thanks so much. Really appreciate being here with you.
I am actually stood up giving you a round of applause. I'm sure you're very used to receiving that when you can see your audience. I wish also you could have seen all the chat going on the HomeGauge employee Slack channels as well. I mean, you really touched a lot of people their wonderful job. And it's so hard to do that just staring at your phone or your laptop or whatever you're using, and get so little back from an audience. So thank you so much for doing it. I'm sure everybody who attended appreciated your words. We appreciate you being here to help us give this conference to the community, and thank you very much.